862-9762. Hey guys, if you like the show and you want to show your support, check out the Opperman Report Patreon. We have all the shows that you hear Monday through Friday on AM/FM radio, but we cut out the ads, so you can hear that content ad-free. The Opperman Report Patreon, you should stop there once a day and check out what's going on over there. That's Opperman Report Patreon.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Okay. 10 long years, man, doing the Opperman Report. But welcome to the show. Welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Opperman Investigations, digital forensic consulting. If you need me, get a hold of me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Boy, did you hear that? Okay. Welcome to the show. If you like the show, check out our Patreon. A lot of great stuff going on in Patreon right now. Let's take a quick look. I keep telling you about that May Pang show. I like May Pang, you know. It's not a great interview, but I like her in general. And that new film is excellent. The new one called Lost Weekend, a love story. Brand new content went up tonight. Jeremy Kuzmarov from the Covert Action magazine online there. He wrote a new book called Warmonger, How the Clintons Malign Foreign Policy Launched the U.S. Trajectory from Bush to Biden. It's a horrible title. Okay. You know, what am I going to tell? But it's an excellent interview with Jeremy Kuzmarov. We get into the shenanigans of the Clintons. For all the crazy people who constantly say that, what sports the Democrats? He never says anything about Biden. He never says anything about the Clintons. What about the Clintons, Ed? What about the Bidens, Ed? God sakes. I'll be gone soon. Okay. I'll be out of my misery and find someone else to annoy. Chuck Ocelli interviews Ed Opperman. I was telling you about that last week when I went on a rant about strangling Chuck Ocelli, but I won't strangle Chuck. I promise. An old repeat Vince Palomera from JFK to Parkland to Bethesda, the ultimate Kennedy assassination compendium. Brand new interview, Marianne Petrie. A lot of people don't seem to, at least one person. My goodness. You know, if you want 3 a.m. emails, interview Marianne Petrie. Dismantling family court corruption. Okay, and we get into, the nightmare of what our family court system is. Let's see here. The story of Mel's Hole. Don't forget that. The Art Bell story about Mel's Hole. I had another story. There's another famous story that I'm involved in. I got to take better notes. What goes, they did a study once that when people are standing online at Burger King or McDonald's or something like that, I hate to mention those names and promote them, but that they'll rehearse what they're going to order. They rehearse in their head what they're going to say when they order the food. Okay? And I've noticed to be true when you're, as a private investigator, when you're going to interview somebody, if it's a scheduled interview, which mostly they are, you watch TV and stuff like that, they show people knocking on the door, just showing up, hey, all right, let's talk, But in real life, you call someone up, you schedule an interview, you sit down together. Anyway. But people will rehearse what they're going to say to you in advance. So you kind of just have to let them burn that off, burn off that steam, and let them get out of their system what they want to say. And then I noticed the same thing too when I started doing a radio show, becoming a radio interview. And back when I used to do those 2-hour interviews, I would just let them burn it off. The first 15 minutes were just, okay, just burn off that energy, and just let them go. But what I've learned now is to let them burn that off in the pre-interview. Okay, when I get them on the show, I have a little checklist I go through hey, when's the show going to air? When I hang up on you, it doesn't mean I'm mad at you. That's just how we edit the show. Don't curse, This little checklist I go through with each guest, don't, all this kind of stuff. And I'll ask them, is there anything important you want me to ask you that you really want the audience to know? And that's usually where they have a little script ready to go there. It's funny, too, because you'll ask them, okay, let's go through the plugs. Do you have a website? Do you have a book appearance, a book signing coming up? And people get so defensive, like I'm judging them. Well, no, I don't have a website. No, oh, no, we don't have any appearances planned. No, I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I did do an interview with a YouTuber last month, but so I try and, get them at ease during that pre-interview. Really, some funny stuff goes on there. The reason I bring this up is when I do my show each week, I'm just like everybody else, the guy online at Burger King or the guy, or even when I'm being interviewed. I stopped doing interviews. But back when I used to do interviews, I'd have my little shtick all ready to go. And I prepare what I'm going to say to you, now on Friday nights, But this week, I have a big Zoom presentation I have to do tomorrow. It's actually a settlement conference, and we're settling a lawsuit, and a lot of it's based on what assets I've discovered. My asset report is a main portion of this settlement, so I have to, and I'm got to do a presentation, So I've been preparing for that in my head, and just think, man, I've been preparing these Friday night live shows, solo shows, to talk for an hour. Just imagine how much that takes out of me. And I've been doing it for 10 years, really, without a break. Whatever, I missed 10 shows over 10 years, And most of that only the past couple of years. So I got to tell you, I think this has kind of made me go a little crazy doing this live show, man. But hopefully I'll be out of my misery soon. Let's see what else here. Sean. Oh, an old repeat with Sean Atwood that really hasn't seen the light of day much. It got stuck over in the member section, the old member section, and hasn't really played much about who killed Barry Seal and Pablo Escobar. That really hasn't been published. Oh, Quinn Mitchell. This kid is 15 years old, and he's up there in New Hampshire. And he's covering the political rallies and events and stuff like that. So we interviewed him. They got kicked out of Ron DeSantis, by Ron DeSantis' goons. So I interviewed him. Nice kid. I liked him, Done a bunch of my live shows there. And then coming up tonight, we have part 1 and part 2 of private investigator William Dorsch and his new book, Omnipotent, Don't Ask, Don't Tell. We tried to get into the book, but we couldn't get away from his involvement in the John Wayne Gacy investigation. Now, William Dorsch, how I found him, because people say, hey, how do you find these guests? We got all these people, they've never done an interview before. You're the first person to interview them. I found William Dorsch because there was an attorney involved in this litigation, and I was bugging this attorney constantly trying to get him to come on the show, and he was always making excuses. And then finally he says, talk to this guy William Dorsch, man. He's involved in this, and he talks to some local press here. So I got him on the show, just blockbuster information about the cover-up. He actually met John Wayne Gacy. His wife worked with him. And he's done a lot of investigation behind the scenes. And when we get into the show tonight, you'll hear about this other location he knows of on Miami Avenue over there, this apartment building where Gacy used to do maintenance and landscaping. But they were digging trenches, 6-foot deep trenches over there for no logical reason. And clearly it was to bury these bodies. They brought out a company that does ground penetrating radar. And the company found anomalies. I have the letters from this company, by the way, where they say we found these anomalies. We found the locations But when the police came out and let us do the search, they wouldn't let us search in the locations where we know the bodies are. So we get into all that in far more detail, man. Great guest, William Dorsch. So it's a 2-part show tonight. Both of them are going to be about John Wayne Gacy, William Dorsch, the private investigator. Occasionally I'm very proud of an interview, and this is one I'm very proud of. I'm proud of the first one I did with him, and I'm proud of these two as well. You're going to find out stuff about the John Wayne Gacy case that you haven't heard anywhere else. Not even in all these many documentaries and Netflix and stuff like that. In fact, they came to William Dorsch and they asked him to cooperate, but we talk about that too, about how these documentary film companies, they'll try and get you on board and get you to sign an NDA, and then you can no longer talk about stuff, like I talk about here. I've been tricked a few times. I've been fooled a few times. Different things that I can't talk about. I kind of hint about it, because if you sue me, man, if anybody sues me, they're going to wind up paying me to settle, because I'll keep them in court for the rest of their life. Some people kind of realize that, when they start messing with me. But anyway, so William Dorsch tonight, part 1, part 2, but a lot of great stuff on our Patreon, and I encourage you to get in there and support it. Because I seriously need your support. I got, I don't want to get into this, but my health is so bad right now. Right now, I got a fever now tonight doing this interview, so I'm not going to be around much longer, guys. To just get ready for that. If anybody out there, man, when any of these people start coming forward and saying, "Oh, Ed was my best friend. Me and Ed were co-hosts," that kind of crap, man, I'll come back from the grave and strangle you. Just ask Chuckacelli. Okay, I'll strangle your ass, man. Bunch of good stuff coming up. I interviewed Ian Totten, who has a podcast called Deathcast about the West Memphis 3. We have that coming up. Who did I tape with? I got one coming up for you. I got a train wreck. Remember I did that week of train wreck interviews, and people got upset with me too, saying, "Oh, Ed, you had such a great show. You had so many great interviews. Why are you playing all these train wrecks? They're the worst of the worst." Oh, so I find this guy. He claims to be he was a firefighter, fire control technician, whatever he calls himself, up in Antarctica, and that he discovered some equipment up there in Antarctica that could cause earthquakes. So I heard this story, and I looked up his website. Kind of an obscure guy, hard to find, like when you Google his name, it doesn't come right up, and it took a little effort to find him. And then I contacted him a few months back, and I remember him saying, "Let's do this the first month of November," but I lost him off the schedule. I couldn't find his information. And I was trying to figure out Antarctica, a firefighter, who's the guy, what's the guy. So he contacts me that afternoon to do the interview. And he goes, "Okay, I'll be calling you. We're doing our interview in an hour." And so I said, "Okay, great, let's do it. So right off the bat, off the air, he says he doesn't want to introduce himself. He wants me to introduce him, do the introduction. And that he's not a very good storyteller. He doesn't want to tell a story. He wants me to ask him questions. So I says, "Okay, fine. It was very uncooperative even before the interview. And then we get into the interview, and he's talking about Project Stargate and Ed Dames. I had some personal involvement with Ed Dames, Major Ed Dames, a remote viewer. And I'm not very impressed with that whole, these lava tubes in Hawaii and all this nonsense, I don't think his predictions have held up over the years from when he was on the Art Bell show and that whole cast of characters that were on Art Bell. I know a lot about, talk about Mel's Hole and all that kind of stuff. I know what went on behind the scenes over there. And it was really entertainment. It was not a lot of fact-driven investigative reporting on the Art Bell show. As much as I love Art Bell, God, I love him. I love that show. And no one will ever replace him. It's just, the way he could turn a boring interview into a great interview, man. Art Bell is a legend. Okay, and his show, man, reached more people overnight than you could imagine. You would go on that show, and your website would crash. You'd have so many hits on your show, But But anyway, so I start interviewing our friend here this week about his Antarctica adventures. And, I'm trying to, listen, if someone has extraordinary claims, you need extraordinary proof to back up those claims. Okay? Now, he's claiming that HAARP was still active. I know it's not. I know people in Alaska. I've been very involved with my investigation of Palins in Alaska. I'm still in touch with people in Alaska. I had an ex-girlfriend who lived in Alaska. I know HAARP is not active anymore. Okay? I know this for 100% fact. Okay? It's not. But he says, oh, yes, it is. Okay, so I didn't argue with the guy. I just let him say it. And the audience can listen. And then make their own judgment. I'm not here to argue with people. I did kind of get into a little. I did an interview today with a fellow. That's what I was thinking about. I did an interview today with a fellow, very nice guy. His name was Richard Otto. Okay, I found him on Facebook, and he's written these 3 books about all kinds of stuff about I guess you'd call it deep state. And politically, we disagreed about some things, and we kind of disagreed about some things. Sometimes things set me off a bit because I know what's going on. I know things behind the scenes. I know the people involved, And so it was a passionate interview, but very respectful, and I like the guy a lot, and I'm going to have him back. Okay? Unlike Mr. Antarctica, okay, who I can promise you, man, this guy's never coming back. But it got so, the guy started saying towards the 3/4 into the interview that he didn't even believe that I had a real radio show. He didn't believe, they thought that maybe I was a private investigator investigating him for Raytheon or something, or who knows what. I don't know what his theory was. And I kept telling him, I says, look, man, we know a lot of the same people. He was on Sean Atwood. I've been on Sean Atwood, I says, dude, Google me right now while we're on the phone. My name comes right up. It's not an obscure show. I'm kind of well known, but he was convinced that perhaps I was just investigating him, and it wasn't a real radio show. And it went downhill from there. I kind of get the impression coming out of Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, that really crazy